So I think without much ado, let's start with the Lead Angels Founder Series.
Once again, thank you everybody for joining us for our workshop on ESOPs, do's and don'ts for startups. Our portfolio company, Freed, has recently raised a $2.8 million round. And we have Mr. Ritesh Srivastava, founder of Freed, who will be sharing his views on that. So thank you, Mr. Srivastava, for joining.
Hey, good morning. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. Yeah.
And we have our member, Mr. Tarun Gulati, who's the founder of Adios, Contemplator, and just ESOPs. So he helps startups in designing stock option plans for startups and helping them design the ESOPs policy. So we're good to go. Over to you, Mr. Jari.
Hi, thanks, Gitansh. So this is a question for everyone. I'm like, you can unmute yourself, or you could put it on a chat box. Can anyone tell me when did the first ESOP policy come in place? When was it first implemented? Any takers? You could unmute yourself and you could say it out, or you could put it in the chat box.
IBM, was it in the US?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm known for finding out. So my key skills are Googling, and I'm known to find out such things. So the first policy was actually put in place in 1956 by a lawyer of the name Louis O. Kelso, who created the first employee stock ownership plan as a way to transition ownership of Peninsula Newspapers, Inc. from founders to employees. And Ritesh, where you were very close to where you were, because he was based in San Jose.
Mountain View, actually, right in the peninsula. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So since then, we have actually come a long way. Good morning, everyone. Once again, with more than 100 unicorns, and thanks to Shark Tech India, every household is talking about startups. Okay. Every person, even parents are saying, why don't you do your own startup rather than joining a company? Okay. So in a sense, startups is a buzzword across the masses right now. But building successful startups requires founders like Ritesh, Pankaj, Madhav, and Tarun himself to, create stellar teams. And when you're talking about creating stellar teams, it is a twofold exercise. One is spotting the talent and hiring them. And second is retaining the talent. Now, ESOPs is an interesting tool for talent retention. And it gives a lot of upside to employees for creating wealth. On the flip side, it is used by employers to create a sense of ownership within the staff. But many things do not work. Okay, why I have put two of these people together is, one is Tarun is into designing ESOP strategies, but he goes a little way beyond that. And two, Ritesh, he is on the path to create something really interesting and innovative in Indian markets, because you don't have any company which is helping consumer side for helping them manage their debt. Okay, what we have today is, I'm like, if you go to the history, many of us may have heard of goons coming from the hired by Citibank to collect our cards, or to just pick up our cards and stuff like that if you're not paying up your loans. But Ritesh is helping those customers do that. Okay. Now, Ritesh, his background has been all over. His schooling from Gandhinagar, his engineering from Bhopal. He's done a stint in Chennai also, a little bit in Kolkata, but he's been in the Valley. He's been in US for more than a decade. And bringing those best practices into India is what he is doing right now. After this is a startup which we feel could scale really well and really rapidly, looking at the circumstances. And that's why he has recently joined Lead Angels portfolio also. And on the flip side, we have Tarun, who is one of our new members, and he's been doing work on ESOP strategies for more than a decade. He's a company secretary and a corporate lawyer. Started his career with PwC and started out on the road again nearly a decade back, or maybe more than a decade back. And so without much ado, I'll start with the question. Tarun, have you seen, do all ESOP strategies work? What's your view on that?
A large number of stock option strategies don't work. And
okay. Why is that?
They don't work not because there is a problem in their design. They don't work primarily because they fail to create an emotional connection between the employee and what the organization stands for.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Okay.
Because many people tend to take the instrument very literally. When you read an essay about stock options and it tells you that it is a stock ownership instrument, it creates a sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. What you tend to assume is that I'm going to hand out this letter to this employee and suddenly a light is going to pass through him or her. Mm-hmm. They're going to be a changed person and start feeling like an owner. But it doesn't work like that. It has never worked like that. It never will. Because the sense of ownership never comes from the head. It comes from the heart. Mm-hmm. So if you have to engage the heart, you can't start with stock options. The conversation has to start somewhere very, very different. That's the reason why it doesn't work.
Okay. So Tarun, so one more thing. I'm going back to the earlier days when I used to create pitches. We used to start with, a founder's vision and mission statement. You use that as a lot in your helping devise strategies. Why is that so important? Why is the vision and mission so important?
The framework that we follow is a 5-tier framework. You start with values at the bottom. What you're saying is these are my guiding principles. We are not even in the company yet. We are saying as an organism, these are my values. And then you say, what are the values of my organization? Using these principles, the second layer is, this is the non-financial vision that we would like to create over the next 10 years. Because that non-financial vision is what truly inspires people to keep going, to get up every morning. Then the third layer above that is, this is the kind of culture, these are the behavioral traits we would like in the team, so that we uphold these values to pursue this non-financial vision. That's the third layer. And the fourth is OKRs, objectives and key results. And the fifth and the last layer is compensation, which is where your short-term monthly salary, mid-term, maybe bonus, and long-term equity comes in. So why stock options, or for that matter, anything that you do, not just stock options, not just compensation, your product strategy, your marketing strategy, they have to sit on a foundation of values and vision, because that is the reason you exist. Mm-hmm. Now, is it something new? Not at all. We have been hearing about these words for about 100 years now. The reason why it has not worked is because they are done in an outside to inside fashion. A few people gather in a conference room for a few days, make a list of a few things, and then they hand it out to the team. This is almost like saying, build it and they will come. Now that we have made it, we magically expect you to imbibe it. That is why it does not work. So why a non-financial vision is important is because that is what creates a sense of identity in every employee. Like if you look at Ritesh, Freed, it is a beautiful case of a wonderful non-financial vision. Let us make X number of people in the world debt-free, or something on those lines. I haven't spoken to Ritesh in detail.
Ritesh, so Ritesh, Tarun just said that you have this non-financial goal. Could you elaborate on it? Why you started this? What made you start this? And what your vision is exactly? If you could lay it open to people at large.
Sure. Thanks, Tarun. I think a beautiful start to this debate, touching upon the spiritual and the value side that I think every founder aspires to have people who are aligned with the vision, to be a part of his company. Now, what led me to start Freed? Obviously, among other reasons, given the fact that I've already done debt relief in the US for more than a decade, and the problem of retail lending, or rather the growth of retail lending, led to many defaults, and COVID just acted as a perfect storm. There were undercurrents of a growing dependence on credit, and also other macroeconomic factors like dropping off the household savings rate and the growth in credit not keeping pace with the inflation rate, which has been constantly on the rise, with the GDP declining. So it was kind of perfect storm situation that happened in COVID, and COVID also kind of, in all fairness, gave the time to, look at what options one could do. I mean, I was running a luxury e-commerce platform prior to COVID, and with the problems and the growth in NPAs and the unease that had spread already with the COVID, right, was really, the trigger point for me to conceptualize Freed. And because I felt the need for debt relief, which was pretty eminent, and with lack of any debt relief measure for that matter, whether it's from any private company or any NGO, or for that matter, even banks and financial institutions. There's no, I mean, even the moratorium announced by RBI literally did not help consumers, because it put them in deeper trouble, when the moratorium was taken away. So that was the idea behind Freed, and to provide debt relief to consumers who are struggling to repay their debt obligations, are not habitual defaulters or delinquent customers. They're just a creature of circumstance which led to the financial insolvency, and due to any kind of hardship they may have had, pay cuts, job losses, business losses, medical emergencies, right? So that was the idea, to create a platform to help consumers who are have a strong intent to resolve their debt, right? And then bring in creditors as well. So settlement or sort of, resolution can happen for those consumers, and eventually through a process of, debt that could get debt free and acquire their financial freedom and regain their creditworthiness. So that was the concept behind Freed. And of course, once you started, you figured out many things in terms of, the lack of credit education. The very thing of, what's an APR? I mean, if you ask a millennial or Generation Z borrower, not many of them would even know what an APR is, right? And they fall in the debt trap very easy, because, the growing credit or the growing debt problem is also associated with abundance of credit, and of course
abundance of credit. Exactly.
Yeah, and then consumption led.
So Ritesh, on this note, see, you are trying to do something which has not been done in India earlier.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Either you had goons or say telecallers were saying, sir, aap EMI pay kar do, and sir, aapne EMI pay nahi kiya, aap kab karoge? That is the only kind of question that come, or simply people come and force you into, give me the stuff or you make the payment. It's like that. Now, to create something new, to say evangelize your vision or your thought process, I think you need a very different set of team. Now, did you use ESOPs to attract talent in this? Your co-founders, your
So sorry, I don't know when did I get dropped off. So sorry, Manish.
Yeah. So I was asking, since you are since you are creating a totally new kind of a company, a new sort of thought process you are instilling, and even in your customers, you're trying to instill a new thing, you would need a very strong team which has a very strong EQ level.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now,
Absolutely.
to have such people, did you use ESOPs to hire them or retain them or something?
So, I would, so Manish, at the core of Freed lies three very strong philosophies, right? Empathy, service, and passion, right? If you do not have empathy, you cannot relate with what's going on with the consumers, right? Debt is a very negative emotion. It brings uncertainty, fear, anxiety, depression, frustration, call it whatever, right?
True,
And
true.
these emotions lie in the heart. They don't lie in the head, right? So you have to eventually connect with the consumer, with his heart. And it is very important that right from the top till, at the core level, at the bottom level, where you have debt counselors, entry level employees who are speaking with the consumers, right? They relate with those values, okay? Which is empathy, service, and passion. So while you ask me that question in terms of, ESOPs, right? So of course, I believe, again, there is a lot of ESOP education itself that has to be, people are using this as a tool without employees understanding what it is. And that's one of the reasons why what Tarun said, right? That it does not work, because there is no appreciation, or there's no perception of value that unfortunately employees are able to create with that. And that's one of the reasons why ESOPs will stay with you. But if your values are not assigned, or not aligned with the goals of the company, you will not be contributing to the growth of the company. And if that does not happen, right, eventually those ESOPs that you've been granted, right, won't be monetizable or won't be rewarding for you. I mean, I'll give you an example, Manish. Google went public in 2004. Okay. And I happen to be in Silicon Valley, in Mountain View, rather, just about a stone throw from where the Google corporate office was. Back in the days, they used to be kind of, in clusters all across, the Shoreline Boulevard. That's where the office was. And when they went public, when the bells rang at NASDAQ, I mean, I remember there were hundreds of employees that came out on the street celebrating, because overnight they had become millionaires, right? But let's go back 2 years ago, because I had my friends, very close friends, who turned down an offer with Google, thinking it's just another startup, right? And I'm getting way better options with Intel or Silicon Graphics or Apple or whatever it was, IBM, HP, and did not choose Google, right? And they were regretting 2 years later when Google went public. But then the success was not guaranteed, right? The reward was not guaranteed. And unless and until your values are not aligned with the goals of the company, the ownership and the success factor just don't align, just don't coincide, right? So the job, I think ESOP, again, plays a very different role depending on, the stage of evolution of a company. At the early stage, where, let's say, Freed is, we're in a very early stage where we just raised our pre-series A. It's all the more important that you get, employees who are aligned with the values. And of course, on top of it, let the ESOPs go with it, right? Depending on the value that he brings to the table, or the perceived value with exposure, with experience, right? So I think it is a very interesting play, right? To choose ESOPs as a tool to retain and attract talent, at the same time be looking for the right fit in an employee, where the values are aligned with the goals of the company.
Right. So Tarun, your views on this? I'm like, he's saying values is how do you integrate the two? How do you get your alignment with the values and your compensation from ESOPs? How do you align these two? What do you do? What is the magic you create around that?
The magic is created by the founders and the team. The idea is to position the priorities correctly. An organization formed primarily on the basis of financial incentives will be a very weak, mediocre organization. You might achieve financial success. Hundreds of companies achieve financial success, but to create something inspiring, it is almost impossible if you do not have the layer of values, vision, and culture going for you. Which means if you haven't spent considerable amount of your personal time thinking about those things, you can create a financially successful org. There are 100
Assuming,
ways.
assuming you've done that, assuming you have created a layer of that values and culture, how do you align it with the ESOP strategy?
The alignment,
How do you distribute wealth based on how much you are following on the values of the company, or uh, is there a uh, is there
there
a
could be
checklist or
linkages.
something?
There could be
Yeah.
linkages to that. For example,
Yeah.
when you define your values and beliefs, and we say this is how we're going to run the organization, what are you saying? What you're really saying is these things will drive all our strategic decisions, including compensation, which means it could drive your vesting.
Hmm.
It could drive your hiring strategy. It could definitely drive your promotion. You would definitely want to promote those people who are very, very aligned with your values, because that's the message you want to send out to everybody.
Mhm.
You could also align the payouts. You could also align additional options being granted depending upon the alignment. A lot of things can be done, but the key is to position stock options as a booster for being inspired for values, vision, and culture. Like, for example, if Ritesh is going to hire people, it would be a very bad idea, he knows, to hire somebody who's only motivated by money. If you don't feel that we want to create people who are debt free, you're not going to enjoy the work, because it is very boring and monotonous. If you don't feel, and that's what is empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is, can I feel what that customer is feeling? If that doesn't come naturally, stock options are not going to do the job. They are not going to help. So
Manish, can I ask a question? Sorry, Tarun. Sorry, I
Sure.
didn't mean to
Sure.
interrupt at all. Right.
Okay.
So, Manish, point very, very valid and very deep. And I'm pretty sure most of the founders will align with this and will concur with what you're stating. The challenge, or the rather, the lateral side of it is that you, in order to run a high growth startup, um, you have to stay competitive, you have to stay relevant, and you have to attract the right talent. 1 hour discussion or meeting with a potential candidate is not going to give you a visibility into what his goals are, what his values are, and whether he's aligned with those. Of course, ESOPs are on the table, right? uh, so how do you, so I believe, the question rather is, how do you set the OKR in an organization where the ESOP granting and vesting is linked to certain attributes, that an employee displays, or a potential any new hiree displays, right? Without rather, giving things for granted that, okay, these will be the ESOPs, whether you align with the thoughts or whether you align with the company's values or not, you will get that. Because sometimes it's a flywheel effect. A startup will grow because, either it could be followed by series of funding rounds because the investors want to grow the company. Uh, uh, but in terms of true success and to build an organization that will, outlast and sustain, it's only the values that will prepare, the company to fight any adversity that can happen 6 months later, 1 year later, or wherever during the course of the journey, right? So the question again is, how do you stay relevant, competitive in terms of attracting and retaining good talent?
So, Ritesh,
Yeah.
Tarun has something called a 60 stock options design framework, okay, which allows you to go through many of these perspectives in a systematic manner. Tarun, can you throw some light on the 60 design framework?
Sure. So the 6D framework, it's essentially 6 dimensions that you can go through while you design your stock option plan. And this again starts assuming that the work on values, vision, and culture is done or is in
done.
progress. It doesn't have
Right.
to be done. It's not sequential, but you're taking it seriously. Let's assume that for a minute.
Right.
Now, 6 dimensions that you can look through when you design your stock option plan are: 1, why? These are the questions you ask. So the first dimension is why. Why are you implementing this plan? Is there an element to reward people for the past? Is there a situation where people have been with you, you were to implement a plan, you did not, or for any other reason? Is there a past reward due? Or is it to incentivize people for the future? Or is it a combination? Depending upon what the objective is, the why, is it the past or the future of both? The design of your scheme is going to be different. That's the first dimension. The second dimension is who. Who should be granted? Where do you draw the line? And why do you draw the line where you draw the line? These are the questions that come in the second dimension. The third dimension is how much. Under how much, you look at what should be the total ESOP dilution. And at a micro level, how many options do I give to this person at this criticality level and why? That's the third dimension. The fourth dimension is what price. Am I going to be granting them at the current fair market value, or a certain discount, or a deep discount like the face value? Or am I going to be granting them at different prices to different categories of people? Again, why? That's the fourth dimension. The fifth dimension is what conditions. That's where you talk about what should the vesting be. Should it be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? What is the nature of your business? What are your values? What is your non-financial vision stating? If you are, let's say, if you're a drug discovery company, probably you should think of a 7-year vesting. You don't have to necessarily go with a 3-year, 4-year, just because many people are doing it. So the fifth dimension is what conditions. Well, how long should be the vesting? Should the vesting be linked to future performance? Or should it only be linked to the employee staying with the company? Those are the questions that come under the fifth dimension. And the sixth and the last dimension is when. Under when, you look at things such as, let's say we know that a person in this role is eligible. And if a new person joins the organization in that role, do you still grant them options immediately? Or do you have a 6-month culture fit period where you say that, okay, you might be a great performer outside, but I'm not sure if you align with our values and our vision. So this also, you see, links to how do you link it, the question that you had asked. There are multiple links you can create to adherence to values and vision. So these are the 6 dimensions: why, who, how much, what price, what conditions, and when.
Okay. So, so a question to you, Ritesh.
Yeah.
Supposing you have a driver who is employed with the company, okay, who is an employee of the company, and he's your driver or he's your janitor. Would you give him ESOPs? Yes or no? And same to you also, Tarun. Once Ritesh answers, then same to you.
Very interesting question, Manish. Put me on a spot right kind of here. Well, I think the values or the alignment just doesn't happen at the top. It has to kind of, all the way go down to the bottom, to a driver, to a PM, right? If the answer to Manish's why, to Tarun's why is that, okay, so why I'm convinced, how much and when is something that, should be looked at, and why should there be any differentiation made from a VP to of course, the how much can differ, but I do not see it because, of course, these are non-core functions, admin, and your other staff, right? But to answer your question, yes, I would very much, and of course, put a vesting of a longer period, right? But definitely would.
Okay. Tarun, what's your answer to that?
So this answer really depends upon what the founder believes, and the answer is different
No,
for
but
different
what
people.
would you advise a founder? What would you advise the founder if he asks you this?
No, I wouldn't. This is not an open and shut question. This is not a question that I tell them what to do. This is an answer we discover together, because there are multiple layers to finding that answer.
Okay.
Like, for example, one of the layers could be, if your objective is to incentivize key talent, then the question you ask is, I have this field force. Let's say I'm advising a company that has a very large field force.
Hmm.
Would they appreciate stock options? If your objective is to incentivize them so that they work better, or would more cash bonuses incentivize them better? That's one of the questions. And you see, only the founder can answer it, because it is his or her vision. They have to stay true to it. And two founders can answer very, very differently. Somebody can say, no, I believe in everyone should share it even if they don't appreciate it. That's a completely valid answer for that founder. There is no such thing as one size fits all. It's a very hackneyed phrase, but think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be. Freed is what Ritesh is going to make out of it, not me.
So I'll share an example with you, say Tarun, Ritesh, and the audience at large. Sushanto, incidentally, was, he was one of the first few IT sector equity analysts. Okay, so he used to meet IT companies, he used to visit their offices and prepare equity research reports on them. One of the key things in that, what he saw was, okay, one of his key red flags was, if you visit the washroom and it is dirty, his research report would not be positive. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, when you are in a knowledge capital intensive companies, okay, every facility that your employees use is a motivator for them, and washroom is one of the key elements. So if your person who is the facilities manager is managing it well, should he be rewarded or not? I mean, in my eyes, he should. What's your view, Ritesh?
Well, in the Indian context, we know a story of Mr. Narayanmurthy's driver, who made a killing with his ESOP. We know Jack Ma's secretary, who made a lot of money. I personally know many Bay Area residents who, at very early levels or very entry level positions, benefited hugely from ESOPs. And like they say, it takes a village to raise a child.
It does. It does.
In exactly the same way, I think it is the contribution of each and every employee, every cog in the machinery that will make the vehicle run. And I think in the I would very much say that it should be rewarded to everyone. Now, how and when is something that can be decided, because the other thing is, which Tarun said, do they even realize? Do they even appreciate? Do they even understand? What is in it for them if they are granted 100 stock options? The value of that, as to how much will it be? So there is a lot of education, right? And the value creation through ESOP, depending on how they perform, right, is something that maybe an HR in an organization or a founder himself, right, has to educate the staff about. Because rightly so, and I've faced that in my company, right? The debt counselors typically that we hire at the early level, and they do not appreciate, they do not understand, right, that if they are granted 50 stock options, right, what could that mean for them?
And there are other layers which a founder has to consider. For example, what is your overall cap available? There is a limit to it. It's not a tap. You can't keep opening the tap and say, I need more stock options, because you might have investors. There might be other considerations. So that is one limitation you have to work under. That's the second lever. The third is, if you do stock options and grant them to people, you have to make sure that they are attractive financially. Assuming, as we said, that the values and the vision thing is taken care of, now we are saying, okay, should we win the day, please don't worry about making money. There will be enough to share. So when you grant stock options, the other filter you have to use is, if I'm going to give it to this person, it better be attractive for that particular role. That's the third limitation. So now you see, I have a cap, which means I have a ceiling of the total that I can go, and a sort of floor for an individual, that if I am supposed to give stock options to this person, let me not give anything below it, because otherwise it will become useless. So what you also don't want to do, so imagine a situation where you for some reason have a limitation in your quantum for some reason. Then you have to pick and choose, and then you have, what you don't want to do is give peanuts to everybody, so it doesn't make sense to anybody.
Tarun, but in the same thing as you're saying, a founder's vision is what people should, should be able to think. And in my eyes, okay, entrepreneur, the word is derived from, on the one side you have entreprendre, which means to undertake in French, and in our very own Sanskrit, that is antaprena, which is self-motivated. So essentially a self-motivated person who is undertaken to change the status quo, to create something which is of benefit to the masses, to create something which is cheaper, faster, better, and more usable. Now, such a guy, the only thing he has to sell, he will have the cap. See, entrepreneurship is all about living through constraints. You will have the caps, you will have limited resources, you will have limited capital. Now, in the same thing, Sir Ritesh, I'm pretty sure you would have roped in your CTOs and the senior people, and maybe they've joined in as co-founder also, I'm sure. Knowing your energy levels, you would have surely been able to do that. But the person that you've hired, he has to see your vision.
Absolutely.
Only then he'll see that my 50 lakh worth of shares or my 1 crore worth of shares will actually go to 50 crore. And because that is what an investor will also see, right? If I am putting in 1 crore right now, will it grow to 10 crores? Will it expand 10 times or not? Okay, so the vision has to, in some ways, you have to treat your employees like your investors, where you are making them see through your vision how your company will grow based on values which are not only financial, but they are also this thing. Am I saying the right thing, Ritesh? Did you use ESOPs in that manner? Were you able to sell your vision or see your employees see your vision? Yeah, please.
Absolutely. I think very rightly put, Manish. More than the compensation, at certain levels, it's also the alignment of the vision that you have to look for. And rightly so in my case as well. It was the alignment of vision, and the buying into that vision is something that I look for. Since I just filled up my KMPs and the top level recruitments. The other thing that I would like to touch upon, which Tarun mentioned, was in terms of the ceiling, right? I think ceiling is totally in the hands of the entrepreneur and the founder, right? I mean, I would be, and I so much so diluted, double of what I had earlier thought of in terms of a management and ESOP pool, right? Let's accept it, at the early stage and even at a Series A stage. Investors are going to be insisting upon a non-dilutive shareholding as far as ESOPs go. So it's the founder, and when you're creating a team, when you're creating value, I think it should be more about increasing the pie rather than worrying about what's the share of the pie that I would have, right? So it's very important, very critical to get the early, and that's the reason I mentioned, right? So the ESOP cannot be just looked at, in silo, as it has to be very closely linked to the evolution of the company and what stage the company is. Once you're in an infant stage that we are in, it's important to be more generous with the ESOPs at the top level. And then 2 years down the line, when you are in adolescence or a youth stage, right, there may not be as much need, because the company has established itself. There are value systems created. The company is on its, growth trajectory. And at that stage, and then of course you become a coveted company that employs you, that the candidates want to work for you, right? If you look at Indian context, if you look at Razor Pay, if you look at, I think power to, Harshal Mathur, what he has created, and I think it was purely driven by values and a very core philosophy that he wants to make payments easier, right? And what he did is incredible. I mean, and of course there have been many like him, but that comes to my mind because he recently just did a buyback of almost $100 million of his ESOPs. So that is what I think the founder should look for, and it's very critical. And I would like Tarun's point on this, that based on the evolution of the company, I think the ESOP plan needs to be looked at, revisited. From a startup to a mid-growth company to a high growth company.
Yeah, as the evolution moves forward, so does your thought process, and also your expectations change. Plus, the kind of people you might need 5 years later would also change. There is a very strong possibility that right now you're just getting off the ground. So the kind of people, the mindset that you need is very different. 5 years later, you might need people who have already seen scale and who can run at scale already because they have the experience. But they have also not taken the risk of the initial 5 years. So these small little things might also amount to a change in your stock options policy. For example, it might be easier for you to say, let me do some discounting if I want to, if there is some leeway right now, because there is a cost to discounting. You need to write off that charge in the P&L. But if there is a case made for it, you could still do it at an early stage, saying that these people have been around. We should have given this maybe 1 year ago, 2 years ago. We were too busy. Let me pass on the benefit. 5 years later, when somebody joins the bus 5 years later, the case for discount is very, very low or close to zero. And the reason is very simple. You did not do anything to get this company from A to B. You're joining at B, where we are secure. We already have de-risked ourselves considerably. So the pricing policy may also change, not just the quantum. And then, of course, you typically look at stock options in a horizon of 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. So going by what your business projections are 5 years from now for the next 4 or 5 years, that will also play a role in what the strategy should be. So it definitely changes.
Right.
See, that's a conundrum that Manish, is right there, right? While you look for a value fit when hiring people, right? At the same time, at the early stage or at the beginning of evolution of a company, it's always the risk that an employee takes, right? Now, how do you reward that risk? Do you reward that risk by a very benevolent stock option policy, or through a better than market, salary? It's always going to be a science. You can't just put a very basic method to it, or a strategy to it. That's what my feeling is.
Somewhat on the lines, Ritesh, is so we have Mr. Ashok Mittal with us, who is running a fintech company helping the unbanked with loans. His question is that most employees today, like stock option plans, everyone is saying I will give you stocks. Some are even saying I will give you equity to begin with. Okay, so in such a scenario, what he says is most employees do expect higher compensation and don't give enough value to ESOPs. How do you get these guys? How do you handle such a situation, and how do you enlighten them that, boss, you look at ESOPs as a wealth creation element, and look at your go for long-term capital gains versus short-term cash? How do you go about that? So Tarun, any light on this, or Ritesh, any light on this? You've done a couple of companies. How do you do that?
So if you ask me, literally, and it's a very interesting question, and and this is again using what Tarun used earlier when we were speaking earlier, right? That let's not commoditize ESOP as founders, let's not demote or devalue ESOPs by offering it to everyone and anyone, right? That's straight for, I mean, someone not assigning or not, having a perceptive value of an ESOP that is being offered to him, and instead, is seeking a higher salary, right? There is a culture, there is a value system mismatch. That's right there. That's right there, right? In fact, I'll give you an instant. This we are looking out for someone to lead our HR. Okay, and interestingly, I've been interviewing candidates, right? And a question gets asked to me: what about the stability, right? And my standard response to any such candidate is, okay, do you reckon that stability of the company will also be lying on your shoulder if you join the company? So necessarily you're asking me, and you're questioning your own ability, to lead a stable company once you join here, because HR will be playing a massive role in creating the value, in creating the culture, right? So that's a straight no for me. Even if the guy may be a great candidate, and that's a straight no to me, because you have to believe in that, and once you believe in that, then so the of course you can't be. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So the way I see it is, what founders should be doing is they should find people who can align with your vision, who see that growth happening, and would value long-term wealth creation rather than the current cash flows. You should hire such people, right?
Right. I'm not saying taking a huge pay cut, right? I'm saying give them markets, give them standard market, right? What they deserve. Exactly.
Kind of
exactly. Okay. But someone who's basically not identifying to the value creation that can happen through ESOP, for me, that's a no.
So Ashok, you have your answer over there. Anything you'd like to add to this, Tarun?
The question that Mr. Mittal has asked is very, very common. This phenomenon is very, very common. People not seeing value in stock options. And I repeat myself, the problem is not stock options. गीदड़ को शेर की खाल पहना के शेर मत बोलो. If they are not connected with your vision
and your values,
where we start.
Right.
Then the next problem can still be, okay, I'm very inspired, but I don't understand the instrument. That's an easier problem to solve.
Got it.
That's technical education.
True.
But if the belief doesn't exist, then I'm essentially looking at this job as a source of a paycheck. Now you see the problem? The moment in my mind, this whole opportunity is just a means of getting cash at the end of the month. Why will I think about getting cash at the end of 4 years? Because it doesn't resonate with me. Why? Because you have not given me anything else to think about. The only thing I'm thinking about is how much money can I make today? If you tell me, this is what we are creating, 1 million people free of debt, and then you wait for that twinkle in the eye. So it starts at hiring. And the key to that is, do not hire fast. Don't hire fast. Are you listening for those skills? People are extremely good at giving you politically correct answers. You have to cut through them. You can't ask somebody, do you believe in values? What do you think they're going to say? No, absolutely not. I'm a completely dishonest person. Nobody's going to say that. You have to start with open questions. There is an art to interviewing. Start with their childhood. Let them speak, and you have to have your wish list secretly in your mind or on your computer, and you're saying, okay, I'm checking for initiative. I'm checking for critical thinking. I'm checking for this. Do I get these vibes from them? Probe deeper into their questions when they say, okay, this is what happened in your last company. What did you like? What did you not like? How was your, tell me some instances about what you dealt with your superior, any project that went wrong. Get them to tell you stories. Don't get them to give you answers. You have to find the answer. Because when he says that, okay, this is what happened, and then you're asking yourself, oh, is this person somebody who upholds values? Do I see hints here and there where he says, no, I took a stand? You don't ask these questions directly. So I'm telling you, it starts at the hiring stage. Do not hire fast. Don't listen to your investors. Don't hire fast. Because trust me, those are the people who are going to hire the next 20 people. And it will be a slide to the bottom.
Absolutely.
You hire somebody who is very good at giving politically correct answers. You have a mediocre organization right there, sir.
Noted, Tarun. And we have the voice of one of our members, Adish Jain, also. So, Ritesh, his statement to your in case being equitable is one of your values, you should consider it for all non-core employees as well. And when you are looking at giving ESOPs to your driver, he could actually be your word of mouth publicist to people at large. He will drive that car like it's his own.
Absolutely.
Okay, and he will drive you around, make you reach on time, like it is his life is on the line. Okay, I mean, if you have such a driver, you should obviously reward him. No two ways about it.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with Adish, and echo his views on this 100%.
And I leave the floor. I think we are towards the end. So I open the floor to all the participants. Anyone wants to unmute and ask a question? Happy to address that. If you are interested in say talking to Tarun for your ESOPs plan, please leave your so please connect with Gitansh or with Aditya or with Kruti, and we will help you connect with them. If you have any questions, happy to address that. Anil, if you have any questions, please go ahead. Stephen, you too. And so, by the way, we've got people from Helsinki, we've got people from Australia, we've got US. No, US is, I think we have one person from the States right now. Others are sleeping right now. Okay. So, yes, anyone? Any questions?
So we have a couple of questions in the chat box. Sure, if you want to have a look.
I've already answered. I've taken all those. And if you could just fill up the form as a feedback form, that'll be great.
Mr. Kapil Kumar is raising his hand.
Sorry?
Mr. Kapil Kumar?
Yes, please. You could unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, sir. I want to ask one question only. Actually, ESOP and equity share. I found the same meaning once we giving the exit to any employee or any senior employer. So I can't differentiate between the ESOP during the exit time or equity share. So both are same thing. Backend structure I know, but I thought this is the same thing or it's a different.
No, it is different.
Too.
Equity, you have the share right then. Equity stock options, you have the option to get the share later, provided you have worked for XYZ months, years, weeks, or whatever it is. You have the conditions in that thing. You have a vesting period. So supposing I give you 100 ESOPs to vest over 3 years, so out of those 33 shares or say 300 shares I give you, so 100 shares will vest after 1 year, 100 will vest after another year, and last 100 will end after the third year ends. That is when you will get those. That is when it will be converted into shares. Okay.
So, sir, what is the value for it? For initial year is a different value, second year is a different value, or the all 3 years the same value?
No, it will be at the value initially that you were allotted. So, supposing the company was valued at 10 crores, it is valued at 10 crore this year, and I give you 300 shares at a 10 crore value, so that you will get the shares at the same value.
Okay. Suppose I'll define the equity for some employee, senior employee. So both are same, na? After 3 year vesting time, because I'm
after 3 years, it'll be the same. I think if it would have converted into equity share.
Yes,
Tarun, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're absolutely right.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Fine, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Any
Yes, Mr. Jaspreet Singh, please, you could unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone, and thanks for that wonderful session. My question was, a two-part question. One is, let's say an employee who's been in the organization, which has grown 5x, right? 100 rupee stock option moving to 500. Now, year one, he obviously gets at 100, but because of valuation upscale, by year 5, it becomes 500, right? And let's say the listing is at 600, 700. It goes public after that.
Right.
So just the attractiveness of that option in year 5 becomes that much more cut down to that extent versus what it was in year 1.
It does.
So do organizations scale amount to compensate for that? Mr. Gulati's assessment or even Mr. Srivastava, or it is something that the employees have to live with.
Employees have to live with that. Employees have to live. See, essentially, Jaspreet, if you see it, okay, you'll see there are quite a few people who, if they have joined the company just before the IPO is happening, they will not have so much skin in the game, and they will. उसका IPO हो जाएगा तब वो फटाक से वो निकल जाते हैं.
That I agree, but it is for somebody who's organized, who's joined on year 1. Year 1 at 100, he got year 3 got at 100, year 3 he got at 300, but by year 5 he got at 500. Listing was 600, right, or 700.
Right.
So I'm saying the year 5 pricing was at 500, right? But assuming the amount is same, the quantity he will get is 1/5.
Yeah, quantity will be lower. That would be low. Yeah.
So is this very atypical of how it is done across, or is it something that depends organizations to organizations? I don't know.
It varies from organization to organization, and I mean, see, one of the key things that you have to see is ESOPs is a way in which you are transferring the ownership of the company to your stakeholders who are, who are part of your organization. Okay. And
Right.
the way you attract your investors for investment, you should be able to create that same kind of a pitch for your employees. That is when you will have them buying into your vision, and see, as Tarun is saying, as Ritesh is also saying, monetary gains do not have to be the primary ones. That should be secondary. You should be doing something so well as compared to anyone else that money will itself flow to you.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, when you are doing that, what happens is ESOPs will become a company will go from 1x to probably 100x. Okay. तो जैसे आप इन्वेस्टर को बताते हैं बॉस आप मेरे स्टार्टअप में डालो और मैं I'll grow 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. The employees should feel the same ways. You have to talk to them in the same manner. Okay. If we do this thing in this manner, we will help so many more people, and that will make us grow even beyond this. And that will create value not only for others, but for us also.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
I hope that answers your question, Jaspreet.
Yeah, it does. Thanks so much. And just a quick follow-up there. That's more on the EQ level. I'm like an HOD of a startup. So, hiring is something that I do at a leadership level. Now, there are instances where you trying to offer a ESOP at a hiring level, or even at, while appraisal when somebody gets promoted, etc. But it's not taken with the same spirit in which it is being offered. It's not being valued the same, like, Mr. Gulati also mentioned, right? Does it mean that, at the time of hiring or at the time, whatever, the leadership or whatever, in this case, me, apprehension stroke, whatever concern stroke, other things with regard to employees, current employee or the prospective employees, stability, the way he or she assesses the organization? Or is it very, very normal to reject such things and just go for vanilla variable stroke bonuses and not ESOPs?
It would vary from say individual to individual. But yes, if your communication is strong with your team, they would buy into your vision. Okay. I have I have personally worked in companies wherein, the VC money had dried up. Okay. There was no one else investing into us. All of us reduced our salary from X to probably 0.2X. And the CEO himself said that for the next 10 months, I will take 1 rupee as salary. And we came back, we rose back like a phoenix, and we sent out a shipment to Japan, and we again raised our next round of funds. So see, it has to come, and the core team has to feel within. Otherwise, why would anyone, take a 5 times cut in your pay if he's not seeing the value or the vision? You need to have that kind of connect with at least your core team, if not more.
Sure, got it. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
And Stephen's question, I think, has been answered. Stephen, if there's anything that has not been answered, could you ask, or you want me to read it out? People who have brought you this far may not be the people who are right to take the organization forward. That's why if you see VCs, normally, the founders become chairman or, non-executive guys, and you got other guys who will be the CEOs. That is a very distinct phenomenon. Not everyone is there for 0 to 1, and not everyone is meant for 1 to 10. Very few people are the 0 to 10 kind of folks. That is a given. Okay. Now, how do you fit ESOPs on that? Well, you will have to hire Tarun for that, or consult Ritesh how he's doing it. Okay. So you guys are most welcome to connect with Tarun on LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to us, we will help you connect with him. Reach out to Gitansh, to Kruti, or to me, and we'll help you with that. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thanks for giving us your time.